Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. Let's talk about some alts that are doing alt things in altcoin season land. As you can see here with the Bitcoin dominance, we are in a favorable altcoin season. Anytime Bitcoin dominance is below the 200-day EMA, historically, alts have thrived. Since ICOs peaked in May 2018, there really haven't been too many extended, long, vibrant, voluptuous altcoin seasons. Even now, arguably, alts are doing well, but it's select few alts. It's not across the board. It's kind of rolling thunder type stuff where there was this froth with DeFi and yield farming. Some of that is still making all-time highs as I speak. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. Then there's other stuff like EOS and LTC that are just doing nothing. So it's not broad strokes here, it's very specific alts. And some of this dominance being lost here is similar to just random coins being added to competition, you know, for BTC between 2016 and 2018. And when the ICOs, we were just seeing like tens and tens a day get added to the list. So we're kind of seeing a similar thing where new listings are popping up, adding to hits on the Bitcoin dominance. So it's not really necessarily organic in that if you keep adding coins to a dominance list, of course dominance is going to go down, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like Comp, for example. Comp was just added to a bunch of exchanges the other day. Of course dominance is going to take a hit because that's how the equation works, right? But obviously alts were popping off before that. I want to talk about BTC briefly because I think if BTC does what it may do, alts are going to follow, as they usually do. So BTC is headed for a potential edge-to-edge move to 7.1. I've talked about this for a long time. I'm not looking for credit, I'm just saying this is what I see on the cloud. This is why I'm concerned and worried. What you want to see on the cloud is always thin. You want to see thin everything. Thin cloud, thin TK line separation. You never want to see thick TK line separation because that typically indicates, even cloud separation, it typically indicates high potential for trend reversal. There's momentum building here, sidewaysness building here that could bring us down. And yes, it has to get through the 200 EMA, it's got to get through all this VPVR support, it's got to get through the yearly pivot. But this is what the cloud is suggesting if we close inside of the cloud on a daily candle, which we haven't done yet, but it's not looking so hot. Something else that is confluent with the edge-to-edge move is this move for this gross-looking inverted head and shoulders, where we'd print the right shoulder in Q3 and ideally bounce back to where we are now throughout Q3 and blast off in Q4. It's kind of been my roadmap for a little while, so what's happening here isn't too unusual in that we're expecting like a 20% drop potentially if these cloud levels start to break. And volume's way down. Volume's way down on almost everything that isn't at all-time highs right now. You know, if you're Link or Aave or whatever, your volume is different than what this looks like. Another way to represent lack of Bitcoin volatility is to look at B.VOL, which is something through BitMEX. You can calculate this yourself through a variety of different ways, but this is just available on TradingView, so that's why I pulled it up. And it goes back to mid-2017. And if we plop on, like, this is market caps of alts minus, it's market cap of everything minus BTC. Total 2 is how to pull it up on TradingView. And there's generally the theory of when Bitcoin is sideways, alts do the best. So in B.VOL, that's represented as the number going down, the value going down, the line going down. In general, that's been the case. If Bitcoin volatility is low, Bitcoin isn't doing anything, and alts do well. The one outlier here is obviously 2018, late 2018, when we were just as volatile as we are now, in that we aren't at all volatile. Volatility is at record lows, and alts followed the downward decline after that volatility breakout. I kind of expect the same thing here. I expect if If BTC drops 20%, alts are going to take massive hits. Massive, just like they did on March 12th. It's not going to be as abrupt or sudden, I don't think. I think it's going to be much slower and droopy and painful. But alts are going to take a hit. They always have. Another way to represent lack of volatility is B-bands. So we're as tight on the B-bands now as we were in 2018. If just in case, to hit this point home a little bit more, obviously volatility, B.VOL is the same as it was in 2018. B-bands should look the same, and they do. It's also projecting a bearish move. The difference here is we had Tether, Bitfinex issues, we had Bitcoin Cash BSV, Civil War, and we had legacy market decline. Legacy markets may again decline here, and it's right on cue. If it does, boom, there's our 20% easy move, because we are pretty correlated, or have been over the past 3 months, with legacy, less so recently. The last thing to really watch for here is miner wallets. If miner wallets start hemorrhaging BTC to exchanges, that's usually the final nail on the coffin, because anytime whales start moving coin to an exchange, they are going to sell it. They aren't going to do anything else with it, typically, unless it's staking, lending, that sort of thing. But in general, it's to sell it, to short with it. It's never good. So those are the things I'd watch for. All that's important if you're watching alts, because if you're looking at these charts and you're thinking, some of these alts have moved, okay, I'm going to rotate into alts that haven't moved, that look decent. You don't want to get destroyed, you don't want to get bulldozed, because you're not paying attention to the BTC correlations with everything else. In general, with the bear move, everything correlates. In a bull move, things decouple, things move independently most of the time. So things, again, like Lend, like SNX, like Aave. Aave is Lend. First time looking at that chart today, so that's why it's confusing for me. But anyway, there's, these DeFi lending stuff is all over the place. All right, back to the charts. So ETH, USD looks like pre-Link. It looks pre-Tezos. This, in an ideal world, breaks up. It's not necessarily a cup and handle, but that's a possibility, and it would break up to 335 to 368. The issue is we haven't broken 250. If we don't break 250, if we don't go higher, we don't go even higher. Shocker, right? But if BTC makes its 20% move down, ETH will follow, guaranteed. And again, this volume just continues to decline. If ETH does turn down, it's going to fight all this VPVR, it's going to fight the 200, it's going to fight all that stuff. But 188 is a decent target for the downside. Another thing to pay attention to is these ETH longs on Bitfinex are back at new all-time highs, 420, 435 million USD in notional value. They're not going to get washed out on a drop unless we basically break 100. I don't think they're really going to get affected. ETH BTC looks great. This is the 2-day chart. The 50 and the 200 on the 2-day are about to cross bullish for the first time since 2018. So that's a really good sign for up in this pair in a vacuum. It's above the yearly pivot. It's above like VPVR congestion, consolidation congestion. It's above historic all-time high support resist levels that are important. So I like it to 0.035 over the next 6 to 12 months, depending on if ETH 2.0 is released. Here's a good bet. If ETH 2.0 gets released before or after a coronavirus vaccine gets released, that'd be a funny one. That'd be a good one for rep if it was working and available. Looking at XRP. XRP looks one of the most bearish charts of anything I'm going to look at here. I showed the 200 in the cloud on here just to show trend, but clearly it's been just straight down. Down city, Mayor, Garlinghouse since the all-time high, and the BTC pair hasn't really looked any better than that. It's just been death. Straight death. It has consolidated a little bit more here since mid-2019, but this does not look like anything exciting that you want to buy, that I'd want to buy. Not above the cloud, not above the 200. Not even getting a bull div here, really. Maybe a little one. What I'm looking for is a lower low in price and a higher low in RSI, so maybe here, but I wouldn't touch either of these. The USD pair actually looks better than the BTC pair. Anytime it's been above the 200 in the cloud, it's just been immediately smashed. So you're certainly optimistic here, but obviously no promises based on historical trend reversion attempts, trend reversal attempts. ADA Cardano has done extremely well since March 12th. Had its white coffee and messy accumulation thing and spring, coupled with some fundamentals of the chain itself that are changing, proof of stake, that sort of thing. So it's moved back up to this no man's land of multi-year highs, and kind of similar to the ETH BTC 0.025 level. That's kind of where I see ADA USD right now. It's at a key support resist level. It probably won't make extremely higher highs anytime soon. I think it's going to need to consolidate. And I think the same things with Cardano. It actually overshot the previous accumulation. ADA BTC overshot the previous accumulation, and it's tapping on the R1. It doesn't quite have a bear div here. You're not getting higher highs on less RSI, less momentum, but it's close to, wanting to fall off the momentum cliff here. I didn't put on volume. I probably should have. That's a good indicator of exhaustion. If you get higher highs on less volume, that's bearish. If you get this blow off candles, that's bearish. You can look at shooting star candlesticks where it's all wick, no body. That's bearish. These are just things to look for on any chart that's looks like this, where it's just straight up parabolic. If you look at Link USD at all-time highs, obviously, and volume is quite low. RSI is at an all-time high-ish. It's definitely in overbought territory here in a vacuum, tapping on the yearly pivot. So this isn't like a buy for me in any case ever. Your buy opportunity is down here at the R1 during this consolidation. When we pop it back above the 200, back above the cloud. Now this is why I look at the ETH chart and I think, okay, this has a chance, right? This has a chance at breaking up ETH USD. Call it a cup and handle, call it whatever you want, I don't care. But that's why I think ETH had a chance. This whole block here is arguably another type of white coffee and consolidation, accumulation. Had its spring or whatever you want to call it, and now it's just in markup. I mean, this looks fine, but it doesn't excite me as a buying opportunity. Same thing with Link BTC. This looks super overbought to me. Volume is kind of sad. Pitchfork is telling you it's in massive overbought territory. It's at the R4. I mean, it's just like, it is so parabolic. It's insane, right? It's never, do you want to buy an all-time high? I'll let you answer that question. But, your buys this is why you use oscillators, you use pitchforks, you use trend following strategies. You buy it when it's mean reverted, you buy it when it's at par with where high time frame EMA is expected to be. It's a much harder buy for me when it's pushing all-time highs on insane, unsustainable momentum with no volume. That just isn't a buy for me. I'd love to see a pullback here to the midline of this pitchfork, then it becomes a buy. Even to this R2, then it becomes a buy. Where it sits now, it needs some chill. Needs some chill pill, Sergey. Needs some chill pill. Link USD and LTC USD and LTC BTC look very sad, especially LTC BTC. Just multi-year lows, maybe forever lows pretty soon if it breaks 003. I don't know what the BTC low was. It might have been lower than 003, but there's just LTC kind of has nothing going for it at the moment. They do have fundamental stuff approaching with this Mimble-Wimble extension block thing, but I don't think that's anytime soon. RSI isn't really even showing a conclusive bullish divergence here. And LTC USD kind of looks like XRP USD, where it's like, could be exciting, trend might be flipping, but I'd much rather see Adam and Eve, inverted head and shoulder fractals than this curved rounded top fractal. So it doesn't get exciting until it's above 50, really. I don't think it's a buy here for me. EOS USD, same thing. $3 is the level I'd be watching. Again, it had its Adam and Eve pre-breakout late 2019, 2018, and now it's just rounded top death below cloud, below 200. Doesn't look good unless it's above 3. EOS BTC pushing multi-year lows, month over month here. Never a good sign. Slow bleed, never a good sign. There is a pretty decent case for a bull div though. Lower low in price, higher low in RSI. This just says that the bearish momentum isn't there anymore. The selling momentum is subsiding, which is what you want to see if you're looking for trend reversal. BNB USD and BNB BTC here. This looks decent. It's above the 200, it's above the cloud. It's freshly above both. Volume's a bit of a joke in that there's no way this is all legitimate, but okay. And RSI looks fine. There's no divs or anything there. So based on trend metrics in a vacuum, this looks great. There's even this kind of weird looking diamond, which is typically a reversal. You want to see multiple touches like we did here with BNB BTC. At the top where it's just touch, 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 touch. You want to see it testing all these levels and then breaking down or reversing. But even if this diamond isn't real, the trend reversal potential is real. So 20 is obviously the big level. And then above that, 30 to 40. But it looks good. 4 up. The BTC pair looks less exciting on trend. I think this probably needs a couple months before it has a shot at anything. Just kind of sideways down. RSI's blown way out here on this move. So I think it's going to need to relax a little bit, reconsolidate, make a decision in about 6 weeks. Stellar USD looks great. This is the 2-day cloud. It's above the 2-day cloud for the first time since 2018. It printed this ugly inverted head and shoulders thing, and it's starting to push above all the VPVR resistance. I like 12, 13 cents. I like 22 cents. You know, just like ADA, how it had this consolidation area, retarget mean reversion resistance. That's what I'd expect for XLM here. We'll see what happens at 13. Now, if you get this like spike into 13 and then denial, that's obviously bearish. But if it can reconsolidate around 13, 14, 12, then it should be good for another up move eventually. Obviously, that'll be interrupted with any downturn in BTC. You know, alts are just going to get slaughtered regardless. And the div, or the lack of div, actually gives me confidence that this will keep going higher. This is the 2-day, so it's not the best div to look at. Probably want to look at it on the daily, but there's no frank bearish divergence here. And this is the 8-hour XLM BTC chart, and I've been mapping this out for, God, I don't know how long, since March, April, maybe. The potential that this breakout happens, even though it's not perfect, white coffee and accumulation, there was a clear accumulation going on, right? Like it wasn't making lower lows, it wasn't making higher highs, just range city that roughly met a common pattern known as white coffee and accumulation. So everything here looks good. Volume's a bit sad, definitely a bit of a divergence here on the 8-hour. So I wouldn't expect this to push much, much higher anytime soon, just because it looks like momentum's waning a little bit. If we look at it on the weekly, the targets were between 1100 sats and 1200 sats. If we treat this as like an Adam and Eve or ascending triangle, this is the zone of resistance you'd expect, along with this Kijun touch. Any higher and you're getting into cloud resistance, yearly pivot territory, which I think is unlikely. So I'm personally happy with the 11 to 1200 sats at this point. Looking at XTZ, USD, and BTC here, they both look fine based on trend. I mean, they're both above the 200, they're both above the cloud. You can't deny that, right? Like in a vacuum, this looks great. Volume came way back in a big way on the USD pair. It's no link though, we'll say that. The XTZ BTC pair looks just like a giant hot mess, right? It's just, you know, this ranging. This may be white coffee and distribution. I don't know, I'd have to map it out. It looks too messy for that, but it may be the case. So obviously any lower low here below 26,000 sats is just dirt nap city down to 19,000 sats, something like that. But where it sits now, it looks okay. It's not too exciting. You know, I wouldn't want to buy this until it breaks the R2 or consolidates bullishly at the R2, something like that, just because there's going to be massive resistance here. Monero looks like BNB does in that it's freshly above all trend metrics on the USD and BTC pairs. Monero BTC does look better than BNB BTC, but this is the picture I want to see. If I want to go long on something, I want it to be freshly bullish. I want the 50 to the 200 to be bullishly crossed or about crossed. I want price to be near the 200. It does have all this upside resistance consolidation to contend with. So this probably won't moon anytime soon, but trend-wise, it does look good for a patient entry trader. Atom, now we're starting to get into some alt FOMO territory. Atom still looks fine. It's above the 200, it's above the cloud. trend-wise it looks fine, volume-wise it looks fine. RSI, it's kind of in overbought territory for sure. No real div here. It's consolidating at the high, which is what you want to see. This is more of a bear div to me because momentum's clearly down. Volume's just whatever. It's obviously breaking a massive range here, but trend also looks good for Atom BTC. 50 and 200 is about to cross bullish, that sort of thing. So these pairs look fine to me for further highs or wait and see long entries in a few weeks, that sort of thing. Even bids at the Kijun, bids at 350, something like that would be fine. ETC looks just as sad as LTC and EOS. Nothing really to talk about here. It's just this is a sideways ranging mess. It's obviously not an Adam and Eve here like it was in 2019. It's just, if anything, it's an M double top into something. There's just nothing. The BTC pair is also unexciting. Like, why would you buy this over entries in some of the other stuff I was talking about, like Atom or Monero BTC? Like, those look better to me than this does here. If you look at Dash, very similar to LTC and EOS and ETC, just sad on trend. The BTC pair actually has a decent case for a multi-month bull trend here. There may be some sideways Wyckoffean accumulation going on as well. It's not for me. But there's a case to be made for a long back up to 01 would be the target, most likely. And like some mean reversion play, but doesn't look exciting. Zcash. The trend on USD pairs looks fine, as well as the BTC pairs. This looks probably the best it's ever looked in that it's above the cloud. It's getting its 5200 cross. It's above like local resistances. It's got some fundamental Fomo Froth from Heartwood, I think it's called, and whatever else is coming in November. So there's a decent case here for spec play, right? Despite my hatred for Zcash. And this is a great example of a bear div or a bull div that you want to see, just multi-month grinding with lows, just pushing, and then bears just get exhausted, and there you have it. The USD pair looks, I'm not really good at harmonics, but it looks like a bat is what it's called. Harmonic bearish bat, I think, in this case. The 882 fib, which is important for I think it's 887, it's important for the harmonic, is near the yearly pivot, so it's near 100, and it wouldn't surprise me if all this stuff sort of correlates with a massive resistance level between 100 and 110. But it's got a decent shot over the next 6 months, especially as it's got this fundamental stuff coming to shift to that 100 level and then make a decision from there. Dogecoin, my baby, it broke out above 30 sats for the first time in like a year, thanks in part to TikTok Zoomers, and it's pulled back to 33, 34, whatever. There's a lot of upside resistance now at the 40 level based on volume. This is a weekly chart. So it's got that to contend with. If it goes further, it's got the yearly pivot. I mean, the thing with Doge is it doesn't have any chill whatsoever. So if Doge moves ever to the upside, it's always just complete insanity. That's just how it is. That's just how it always has been. So you can say, it's important to watch 40, 45, whatever this is. And if it breaks those levels, I'll enter the long. But it's tough because if that happens, then it's at 50 or 55 by that point, right? The same thing with the 30 level. It went from 22 to wherever 32 in like an hour. So it's tough. It's tough to play Doge unless you just be patient and sit in it for a while. But if it does go higher, I like 100 still, and it hasn't changed. I'm just not convinced it'll keep going higher. We'll see. We'll see if we get some shenanigans in the next 6 months to help this above 30 sats. But it looks like it's on live support right now, definitely. BAT doesn't look like a long-term play to me. It just looks like a ranging mess. A quarter is probably fine as a price for BAT. It's probably a fairly valued utility token at that price. The BTC pair actually looks more interesting. It kind of looks like Zcash, where it's above all these levels. Trend favors the long side here. And it has this Adam and Eve-ish type, bullish reversal fractal going on. So I like this chart to the upside, probably to 4K, 4,500, something like that. If it can break 3,100. because it looks good. USD chart, you know, I wouldn't touch this with a 500-foot pole, but the BTC chart looks good to me. And then what everyone's been waiting for, I'm sure, the Lend and SNX charts. One thing I'll say is just be careful with the Kool-Aid on stuff like this, because when you start seeing the tweet threads about how Aave is going to change the world, that's when you have to get worried. You know, that coupled with parabolic moves like this, the banana, whatever you want to call it. Get Trev on the phone. He can tell you all about it. When you see the tweet threads at the top or the bottom saying how a coin's going to change the paradigm, right? That's when you got to be concerned, I think, if you're in a trade. I don't think it's broken the all-time high, which is probably around 45 or something. It probably will. You know, this probably keeps going. Who knows? I think it'll keep going as long as BTC does nothing. If BTC starts to pull back, this, like everything will pull back. You can see the volume here is a joke. There's no volume at all as it's pushing these highs. RSI is completely manic, overbought territory, but no div here. There's no bear div, you know, so it's got that going for it. So yeah, just be careful with that one. And then this is on the weekly. Lend BTC just looks comical. You know, again, volume declining, definitely a divergence there. And RSI is just, you don't see that too often on anything. It just looks like Fugazi painted chart, you know, looks like an example of a chart that you'd see when you're learning how to trade and learning when to be careful when going long, because this could drop 50% any moment. You know, it could go up 25% any moment. It's clearly price discovery. That's what price discovery is all about. Some people are excited about that. Obviously, if you're long from the bottom, you're excited about that. It brings in a lot of new people that get crushed on this move on both directions. So just be careful, you know. And did I not include the SNX? Let me find it. Yeah, so here's SNX on the 4 hour. Definitely imperative here. Higher highs on lower volume, higher highs on lower RSI. Any higher highs are less likely than bullish exhaustion, right? Like, less volume picks up, something crazy happens. This looks primed for reversal, as does the BTC pair. Volumes continue to get lower since the all-time high in volume. I think the all-time high in volume. And RSI just continues to decline. And it's just clearly FOMO, mega FOMO territory, right? Like, you don't see these charts every day where it's just a straight line up, right? Always dangerous. Always be careful. And then comp is hilariously the opposite, and that is just pushing all-time lows. There's no bear div here on either USD or BTC pairs. All right, so if you survived the 20 to 30 minute long video, like this, like, comment, share, subscribe. I read all the comments. Let me know what you think about DeFi, Fomo, Froth, and let me know if you think I missed a coin that's worth discussing. Happy trading.